I'm very optimistic. I'm optimistic because a lot of technologies get from experimental phase into a scale phase. We see that really across the board.
So welcome to Leaders on a Mission. I'm your host, Simon Leich, and this is where we uncover the stories of visionary leaders driving change and innovation. And today I'm really pumped, delighted to be joined by Adrian Bührer, managing partner of Übermorgen Ventures. Übermorgen Ventures are a firm with a really impressive track record of backing bold startups solving global challenges within climate tech and decarbonization, and really interesting broad portfolio spanning lots of different groundbreaking technologies, and on a North Star and a mission to really accelerate the net zero transition. So, we're going to explore Adrian's journey, the firm's unique investment approach, and some of the trends shaping the future of climate innovation. So, Adrian, firstly, you're a busy man, so thanks so much for giving up your time and coming on the show today.
Thank you, Simon. Good to be here.
Excellent. So maybe just talk through a little bit around your personal journey. I'm thinking about, particularly, maybe some of the key moments or milestones in your career that really inspired you to found Übermorgen Ventures.
Sure. I don't really know why, but I had the flair of becoming an entrepreneur very early on. I started together with 3 friends our first company when I was 20. I think we incorporated it when I was 22, but we actually started when I was 20. So that was around 2000, something like that. And I sold the company when I was 29. And so I had the pleasure to get to know entrepreneurship, especially also digitally driven internet entrepreneurship, long before the term startup was en vogue, how to say. And looking back, I mean, my father being a professor, a teacher, my mother being a nurse, I don't really know what drove me to entrepreneurship, but besides a short, brief moment after I sold my first company where I had to work in a corporation, I think I never had a boss. And I'm now 47, so for the last 27 years, I was always an entrepreneur. And I think that is one part that is very important if you want to understand Übermorgen Ventures. And the other part is that I basically had 2 moments in my life where I sort of had that bulb going up above my head, so bing, and I knew I want to do something. And the first one was really in that first company before we founded that was the internet. I cannot say it differently. It was just came to me one night and I said, look, the internet is going to be huge and it's going to be here forever and it's going to change everything. And I wrote that down on a paper and I stuck it on my wall. And I think a couple of months later, we founded the company.
Got it. Yeah. So you founded the company you then went to find the kind of business model or solution that played into that larger macro trend at that time, rather than it being the other way around.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, basically the company wasn't too fancy. It was a student's portal, but it incorporated quite a lot of the features that became well known only later. So it was way before Facebook. It was way before all the other competitors we had. Basically, we had those Web 2.0, which was very fancy at that time. So users created content for our platform. And we were able to sell it to Axel Springer, the biggest media house in Europe. So basically, there was just no overlying business model, but on top of that macro trend.
Yeah.
So it was really the underlying, the river that I saw was the internet. The boat was then the company.
Did you have the other light bulb moment? Does that relate to climate?
Yeah, so that's exactly so, and I really like to see it that way. The other one was really in 2017. I wrote an article on my own company website. I wrote quite a few, maybe 5 or so, but this one was about climate change. And while researching that, I was like, holy shit. I started to believe the science. I started to believe all these articles. I started to sort of, you read those, the world is going to end, Mad Max scenarios all the time, like wildfires in LA as we speak, on a apocalyptic level. But once you really let it sink in, and I did, I was like, okay, that's going to be the worst thing we will experience in our lifetime. Not the worst thing the world has ever experienced, but I don't care if the dinosaurs were killed because of a meteoroid, but this thing here, we're going to experience it in our lifetime, and it's always going to be the biggest business opportunity in our lifetime. It's going to be bigger than in the internet.
So when was this timing-wise, and was there, I know you were looking at a lot of data, was there one thing in particular that kind of stood out, like when you think back to,
No, it was really writing that article. So it was one of a few topics. There were other topics like data privacy or whatever, just stuff that interested me. And one was climate change, but it was really while I wrote the article, I had that light bulb above my head, and I was really, holy shit, this is going to be so huge in a very bad level, but also it's going to be a huge business opportunity because we need to solve it. I mean, the alternative is very, very bad. I mean, all the scenarios of the Earth heating more than 2 degrees are really, really bad for all of humanity. So as an optimist, I thought we need to solve this, and I guess society can solve this, but what does it need to be solved? And then you come up like, okay, everything needs to change. Energy, transport, food, like a lot of things, not everything, but a lot of things need to change. And that's an enormous business opportunity.
So when was that? When did you incorporate Übermorgen?
So basically, then I wanted to find like-minded people. I was very lucky to have found 2 in my existing office with Mike and Elena, who had really similar thoughts and similar journeys to come to the conclusion that they want to be part of the solution and not part of the problem. And shortly thereafter, we found Alex, who had a very scientific background. And then we started to explore working together as 4 equal partners on it in 2018. And I think we founded Übermorgen Ventures in 2019.
Got it. Okay. It's funny, isn't it? It's only 6 years ago. I mean, and I'm thinking a year before COVID. I don't know. It's just such a name that I've seen, I'm so familiar with over that period of time. It just feels like it's older, but it's 5 years just flies by as well, doesn't it?
Definitely.
I was having a look. I think, there are a couple of things. So tell us a little bit about how you plan on kind of solving this real kind of existential crisis that we kind of face.
So, obviously we are not solving it ourselves, and only in a very secondary way also, because we try to give money to those people who then actually develop the solution. So we are second tier problem solvers, so to say. But one has to say that financing itself of solutions is a huge problem in overcoming the climate crisis. So I think there we're really trying to add a little bit to the solution. But if you look at then the companies we invest in and the founders that provide solutions, it's really straightforward. So the main thing is greenhouse gases in the atmosphere coming from us burning fossil fuels. So adding more than if we were just to burn biomass that is already on the surface of the planet, but we add fossil fuels that were buried underneath for millions of years. And so the concentration in the atmosphere gets higher. That leads to warming, and we are simple people, so we just want to bring that concentration of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere down. And that's the number one KPI we look at. And there we look at all the sectors. Basically, you can look where do these emissions occur. And our portfolio is quite nicely aligned, sometimes by chance, sometimes by will, to these sectors. So I don't know, about 40% is energy related, and about 40% of our portfolio is in the energy sector. And then there are others. There is transport, as I mentioned. There is food, as I mentioned, and then. There are a lot of materials, chemicals that you just want to replace. For example, fertilizer. I didn't know a lot about fertilizer before I founded Übermorgen Ventures. Turns out it's big, and it's almost entirely made out of fossil fuel. By the way, mostly in Russia and Ukraine, and the prices have gone up for it because of the war, which is, by the way, also a climate war. If you look at the grain that is produced in Ukraine, that's certainly part of the logic of the war there. So fertilizer is a very big thing. We try to replace there the fossil fuel part of it. We try to have another process than the Haber-Bosch process to do it right now. So all the sectors and if you go through all the sectors, you will find out that you still lack about 5 gigatons a year that are hard to compensate or that we will not be able to compensate in time. And that's why we also focus on climate and on carbon dioxide removal technologies.
Yeah, and I noticed that on your website as well. I think you mentioned the portfolio companies and what some of the kind of CO2 equivalent reduction, I think, is. So clearly something you measure. But also what I found really interesting about your firm, you're structured a little bit differently from a lot of other kind of VCs. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about that, because you seem to be a lot more kind of patient from a capital viewpoint when it really comes to providing kind of financial solutions to these issues.
Absolutely. So I think it has a little bit to do with our personal histories. We still feel young, but we are actually not so young fund managers when we started Übermorgen Ventures. I think we already founded 10 companies combined before Übermorgen Ventures and invested in about 50 or so. And we were also lucky enough to have a little bit of wealth. So we wanted to structure it in a way that we think is best. We think it's best for the startups we invest in. We think it's ultimately best for the goal that we have, providing solutions to overcome climate change or overcome the climate crisis. And also that is best for our investors on a long-term perspective. And we thought that 8 + 2 years, 20% carry, 2% management fee model, that it's a good model. I mean, everybody has it, and I'm myself, invested in funds that have that model. But we thought for us and for the problem climate change, it is not the best solution. So we went for a evergreen structure. At the moment, this is an investment company based in Switzerland. We are thinking of rolling it over in a fund structure, but the metrics and the mechanics will remain the same in terms of we are and will be evergreen. That means no end, no divesting period. We don't have to go out of an investment after a couple of years. We can stay indefinitely, basically, in a company. And the second thing is we can reinvest. So at the moment, we have to cash out about at least 30% of the profits we make. And it's going well. We just had 2 exits last year. But
that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. 2 last year. That's wow.
Yeah. I have to say some exits. I mean, even though we made a profit on both of them, at least in one case, we would have loved the company to stay in longer. But sometimes it's always between the founder and the investors. If the founder wants to do an exit, there's not much you can do as an investor. And at the end, it turned out fine for everybody. But early exits, that's a good example. It's not what we're looking for. We'd rather have exited that company in 5 years.
Yes.
But just to say, so we can reinvest proceeds up to 70%. And that makes it possible that we can invest up each dollar several times, and really increases the impact for our investors. So we have a lot of family offices of high net worth individuals that really care for climate change and then really want to do it. And we can tell them, look, in the best case, your dollar worth several times its magic. So we make $2 out of $1, and those $2 we invest again in solutions that have an impact, and so forth. And that's really the structure where we think serves the purpose best.
Got it. Yeah, absolutely. And so you're going to be raising a new fund, right? Or with this evergreen fund, does it mean you then keep that fund open and then you'll look for new investment into it? Is that how it works?
Exactly. So we are thinking about, so that's not a final decision yet, but we are actively exploring in opening the existing fund. So we do not intend to ever have a second and a third fund and SPV fund and all these funds that just collect management fee. That's just not our thing. We really want to have one thing, and we are opening it, or we're thinking about opening it to new investors this year, in the form of probably in form of a Luxembourg structured evergreen fund. But again, the mechanics will be the same, still evergreen, still reinvestments. It's basically for tax reasons that we are restructuring it a little bit, because at the moment we pay out through dividends, and afterwards we can pay out through redemptions, which are tax-free. So that's the main difference why we are even thinking on changing the structure.
Got it. Yeah. What is the market like at the moment with when it as it relates to investment into the decarbonisation journey? I suppose, where are we? Are investors, what are they looking for now, as it were?
I mean, that's the sentiment is shifting all the time, and maybe before we go into what investors want. I think there's 2 things we need to look at, and that is what needs to be done, and the main problem is really politics. So what we would need is is a clear regulatory framework that actually finally, in one way or another, taxes the damage that the emission of carbon does. As you pay a fee to put out your garbage, you should pay a fee to put out your carbon dioxide to the atmosphere. And so the jittery sentiment of investors is due to is it coming, is it not coming now? Now Trump is rolling back all the climate regulation. So the transformation to a net zero economy, I mean, that's it needs to happen. Everybody who is just half brain serious about looking at the numbers and at the scientific, facts. Go to NASA, go to MIT, go to University of Munich or ETH, Zurich, Cambridge, you name it. Everybody says the same. The data is so clear. So to have a clear political framework, how we're going to make this transformation, that would really, really help the whole sector and ultimately the planet. And I think the investor sentiment is really dependent on that. If you look at large corporations, I don't know, 5 years ago, they had their DEI policies because the politics were that way. Now they're all abolishing them because Trump doesn't like them. So this is really this unconclusive guidance from politics is very, very bad for this.
Yeah, and particularly US politics here, right?
Yeah, but I mean, if you look at Europe, in Austria now, it's the hard right is coming up. They are climate deniers. In Germany, the AfD are climate deniers. In Switzerland, the largest party, thanks God, we don't have those two-party system. We have a lot of parties, but the largest, the SVP, the president is a climate denier and a climate change denier. And I mean, so that it's not only the US, I have to say, and
right.
It's very terrible. I mean, in the UK, it's Nigel Farage, all very, very terrible. I mean, there's a special place in hell for those people who knowingly, put short-term profits before long-term, existence of humanity. So I think that's the biggest problem. But if you really look then into the sector, I'm very optimistic. I'm optimistic because a lot of technologies get from experimental phase into a scale phase. We see that really across the board. I think the best known is now electric vehicles, even though it's now a little bit of a slump, but I mean, the prices are coming so much down. The adoption rate is phenomenal. The solar panel is also a very big success story. So we see a lot of technologies where the costs are coming down and are competitive or even cheaper than alternatives that are fossil fuel based. And we see that across the board. So that makes me actually very happy. And the other thing, which is very sad, also makes me happy. I mean, the proof of the climate crisis is unfortunately clearer and stronger every year. And so I hope with personal experiences, people really start to understand that those solutions are needed and that will also help. So in a 3 to 8 year view, I'm super optimistic, but on a day-to-day basis, I could sometimes cry.
Understand. And I would imagine as well that, where you decide to invest as well, in terms of some of the sectors, because you really invest in some long-term stuff as well. Like I think, stuff that's going to take 5-10 years to really come to fruition. And I don't know, maybe your kind of emphasis and focus changes to things which maybe could commercialize a bit quicker, possibly, in light of where we are.
No, I think it's the mix that counts. It's also for investors that want to invest in our portfolio. I mean, it's one of the few, or maybe even the only, or at least one of the few active portfolios you can invest in. Usually, when you invest in a fund, it's an empty fund, and then they start investing. But with us, you see what you get. And basically, there we really have a focus on diversification. So we have nuclear fusion, very promising company, by the way, not in Europe, the only one not in Europe, in the United States. But they will not do anything before 10 years, that's for sure. I mean, that's really a long shot. And then we have a company in Germany that does basically those reports on construction sites about the CO2 impact of a construction site, and they digitize that. So that's a problem each construction site in Germany has now, and the solution works now, and they can scale now and fully digital. So you see, we need to have both. We need to go really deep tech. We think some of the largest problems cannot be solved digitally. They need atoms and molecules. They really need invention on a material level. But other solutions are low-hanging fruits where you can really, have fast rewards.
Yeah, no, great. So it's mainly in Europe. Like when you think about where the companies are based, like Germany, Switzerland, where kind of else?
Oh, we are really across Europe, from northern Finland to southern Portugal. We lack a bit East Europe. I don't know if we have too many deals in Eastern Europe, but the rest of Western Europe, we almost have a deal in every country. Spain, France, wherever you want to go. Obviously Germany and Switzerland, but really across the board. And that's our focus. Europe is our focus. Not the solutions, they can be based worldwide, but the headquarters and the founders, we look at European founders.
Yeah, understand. And maybe let's have a look at, just thinking about the startup ecosystem, as it were, across Europe. Is it broadly, are you generally investing, in technologies that are kind of being spun out of universities? Is that, is that a focus, or is it kind of broader than that?
No, I mean, it is a focus. So we have a few universities like the ETH in Zurich, which I think is still one of the top 10 technical universities worldwide, where we have very close relationships. And I think we have 3 startups that are directly spin-offs of ETH. The Technical University of Munich, TU in München, is also, we work with them together. So we look at those, but it's not exclusive. We're not like sitting there and waiting to, there's a new founder coming out of there. So we really have they come from everywhere. And we see more and more also experienced founders. It's I would say one of the best, if not the best thing about climate tech or solutions for climate change is that very, very bright people come into the sector not because they think they can earn the most money, but because they really want. And so you have like very successful founders who made exits more than 100 million, who really gather experienced teams and say, look, that's the problem I want to solve. You have people from McKinsey and all these consultancies. You have people from Google and Facebook. So there's really a lot of top tier that willingly wants to make a solution in our sector. And that is a blessing that not every sector has. So I think we attract the best people better than Facebook and Google. I really think our sector because they have usually not only the right mind, but also the right heart, and are genuinely interested in making a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, there's something really special about the mission-driven company and founder, isn't there? Because it's just the drive and the ambition and the hunger for it all to come together is incredible. But it's tough, though. It is a tough journey with it being a CEO or a founder of a company, and scaling technology from the lab, and what I suppose when you look across your portfolio and you invested in a fair few companies, I think it's about 38 companies. I think.
Yeah.
Maybe just talk a little bit. I'm interested in that journey. Particularly, what some of the kind of common challenges that some of these founders face now, looking ahead into 2025, and because it is a tough journey.
It most certainly is a tough journey. I mean, we see, as you say, we see similar problems across the board. I can just pick out a few of them. I think the first, but also one of the most severe, is picking the wrong co-founder. We had that once or twice in our portfolio, but we've seen it in other portfolios. We even saw it in other VC funds, where partners suddenly try to split, and that can be very early or very late in every company. That can be a problem that can kill the company immediately. So you suddenly find out that one is not fitting at all, or has completely different expectations, and then they want out, but be paid at least a couple of millions for their shares, and our view is their shares are worth shit, because they're out, and so this is like one major hurdle you can run into a company, and we see that, and they're always hard to solve. So we try to solve them with good contracts. So we are really educating the founders in, hey, I know you love each other now, but think of it as a marriage. You want to also prepare for the divorce. You want to also have some checks and balances in place for the divorce. No, we're doing everything together. Yeah, but so we try to help there, but that's a biggie. Another biggie is just not finding product market fit. And that's much easier for us from an external view to acknowledge without hard feelings. It's not working out, guys. Let's just close shop. Or if you have a good idea to do something else, fine. But otherwise, let's just close the company. No bad feelings. But as a founder, it's very hard, if not impossible, to acknowledge that it's just not working. So all the ideas that you have, it's just, there's no product market fit. So that's something that does happen often, and that has no bad feelings from our side. But for a founder, that's hard.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you think you like, when it comes to, I'm thinking about maybe some of the founders, first-time founders that you might come across, and you're just about to kind of invest, or they're about to start the journey. What do you feel that they need to, what are the personal qualities, the most important personal qualities you feel are important for them?
At the very end, it's getting stuff done. and there's a lot of not so successful founders and people in general that are just complaining about what's unfair, what was unlucky, or what was just uncool, why they couldn't get something done. And then there are other people who don't say a word and just get it done. And basically, in a nutshell, I would say that's that.
Yeah.
Some people just do stuff, and others just talk about doing stuff.
Yeah.
Doing is better than talking about doing.
Yeah. And but can you, because it's fascinating. You sit across the desk and Zoom and conferences, hundreds of people pitching you these ideas. They're literally every year. I don't know how many you see, right? I mean, roughly how many ideas or
More
CEOs
than
you get?
1,000. More than
1,000. Your brain must be so in tune when it comes to what you're looking for. Like, tell me, when it comes to that personal characteristic, right? How quickly are you making your mind up, do you think?
So here I have to say I'm very happy that we are 4. And while we might be faster to agree on the technological or business side, we always or almost always have different views on people, because we are different people, and that's very good. And we introduced something like a measurement that we call team flag. That everybody in the team can raise at any time and say, hey, I have doubts, I have concerns about the people. And then there's a whole protocol that's going into place, pre-investing, but even in companies we have already invested in, we really try to get substance behind feelings, which is very difficult. It's just sometimes you have a bad feeling, or sometimes you just don't like the guy, or you very much like the guy, and or the girl, and or the woman, and you just super charming and everything, and then you just want to buy, invest, let's do this, and then maybe Elena raises her hand and says, guys, look behind the person. Let's challenge that. So it's. I think it's very. I'm very gifted that I have 3 partners that have completely different view than I have. I'm fast to make my judgment, sometimes too fast, and we have others that are really slow in making their judgment. But we all 4 agree that it's the key metric is the person we invest in.
Yeah. Because I figure it's funny, like, after you've invested, you're then working with them for years, right? So, yeah, I mean, I get that there's got to be some characteristic about, I don't know if it's liking, but respecting and knowing you're going to spend time with these people, right? Regularly. Yeah. So that must be a big part of it as well, right?
I think respect is one of the biggest parts. I mean, that's the when I lose respect, I think all is lost from our perspective. We might just, still have shares in that company, but if one of us tells a story in the team meeting, like that guy, he lied there, he tried to put blame on another person instead of taking responsibility. There's some stuff that he tried to do a contract behind our back, or just a lot of stuff. If somebody mentions one of these things, it's basically red flag with us, and not impossible, but very, very hard to rebuild the relationship.
Tell me, Adrian, because it's been tough. And I think when things are tough for companies, certainly when it comes to making payroll, things happen emotionally. Things happen. What you've just outlined, are they behaviors and characteristics you see relatively regularly, where all of a sudden you're on a path, you think you're on this path with this founder in person, but shit's hitting the fan and they're doing weird things as a result of it? Is that a common kind of thing you need to watch out for, as it were?
Yeah, I mean, it is, especially if the shit hits the fan, you see the true character of people. And I mean, for us, it's a very simple metric, and if a company fails, and we call the founders and say, "Hey, call us again if you do another company," we would still invest, even though we just lost $500,000 on you. Then that person has done everything right and has just, in our opinion, maybe had the wrong idea, maybe just fell out of favor with investors. And if you look, for example, at the online food B2C products, they were all the rage 4 years ago. They are really almost impossible to invest in now. It's not their fault. They're just the investors just don't like online B2C food at the moment at all. So a founder like that has to close the shop because they don't find a Series A or Series B investor can still be an excellent founder. But it's those shit hitting the fan where you really see, the spectrum of people. When everything is good, in Germany say Schönwetterkapitän, so a captain that only can sail in good weather, but if the weather is getting shitty, you really see the full spectrum of people, and some of them start to blame, just blame around everybody's fault. Some of them really, have this attitude of not listening. So we tell them half a year or a year before, watch out, it's going to be hard, maybe prolong runway, reduce costs to survive, and they just ignore you completely, and then they just, they shift the gear up and drive full speed into the wall, and you're like, we really told you, a year ago. And then there are some who just, keep calm, take responsibility, do the right moves, and either survive and come out stronger, or have to close shop, but no damage done. I mean, that's the business. Sometimes we lose money, but that's no problem in that case.
Yeah, no, got it. Just thinking, like, what kind of portfolio company or founder comes to mind that have really inspired you with that kind of grit, creativity, and ability to overcome whatever is put in front of them?
Look up something. So basically, the company that comes to mind is Pipredict, which Valerie was the name. So she lost her co-founder when the shit was hitting the fan at Pipredict. The co-founder left the company. He was like more of fuck that attitude, I'm out of here. And she hang in there. And at one point, I think she even funded the company with her money. And like, she didn't have any money. So it's like, basically, do I eat food or do I fund my company? That sort of. And she hang in there and sort of with sometimes minimal resources, kept the company afloat, sold it then to another company, and now that whole company has been sold, and we have made a profit on our investment. But even if we hadn't, I would have said kudos to Valerie, because that was really entrepreneurship at its best. She was the survival of her company, and she was tough, did some tough decisions alone, I have to say. Sometimes we were in like weekly conversation with her, supported her also financially. But at the very end, it was a lucky ending because of her hanging for more than a year. I think the company was doomed to death. But she believed in it and she pulled through, and that was extraordinary.
Amazing. Well, it sounds like she deserved it. And look, Adrian, we could chat. We've only just even unpicked the service, and we could chat for hours about this. But I know you've got companies to invest in and to look after, etc. So I should really let you go. And I just wanted to thank you a lot for sharing your journey and your insights, and sharing a little bit about the impact that Übermorgen Ventures, making in climate tech and decarbonization. So I really appreciate chatting to you. Thanks so much for coming on today.
Thank you, Simon. It was a pleasure to be here.
Great. And to our listeners, really always appreciate you tuning in. So stay curious, keep building, and we'll see you on the next show.